On today's show, Deni Avdija's All-Star appearance is a bad look for the Washington Wizards, but it actually proves this was the right choice based on the timeline.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
DC family, you are locked on to the Washington Wizards, where you're part of our family. We thank you for making Locked On Wizards your first listen every single day. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team free and available every single day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Alongside the DC sports content creating savant Abdullah Ayubi, I am Ben Strober, and I cover the Washington Wizards for Roundtable IO. AB, happy Monday. How's it going?
I wanted to ask you, Ben, how packed was Wizards King yesterday? Because we saw Wizards Lakers and a lot of Lakers fans, so I'm assuming Capital One was packed last Sunday for the Tank Bowl, right?
Yeah, just like imagine what it looked like for the Lakers game, and then just take the opposite of that. That's what it looked like for, man, what a crazy, ugly game of basketball. But on today's show, Deni Avdija has made his first All-Star game 18 months after the Washington Wizards traded him. We tell you why this is a bad look for the Wizards as it stands on paper right now, but actually the right move because of the timeline. This actually proves that. We also talk about why Kyshawn George can be the one that quiets the doubters that exist because of this trade made by the front office back in 2024. And we also talk about DeBanza against Darryn Peterson and why we couldn't even have a conversation like that if Avdija were still on the team. Right away, get right into it here, AB. Deni Avdija being an all-star is obviously a bad look, and it just seems on paper you say this front office traded away a player that became an all-star. You could say they didn't have the foresight to see that this team would have an all-star player within a couple of years. Deni Avdija, who deservingly, I think, you could maybe make the argument that Kawhi could have gotten over him, but he's been awesome this season. 27-7 guy. The numbers on off would indicate how valuable he's been to that Portland team. 118 offensive rating with him on the floor, 104 with him off, which I believe is the worst in the NBA. They're on a 5-game slide right now because he's been injured, missed 6 of the last 10 games. He's been banged up for some of the games he played. So he is very valuable to that Portland team. But this move actually proves that the timeline argument that Michael Winger and Will Dawkins have provided time and time again about Deni Avdija, it actually makes perfect sense. The Wizards wouldn't be able to keep their first-round pick right now if Deni were part of the equation. I think they'd probably, realistically, with the current core of players they have right now, with Avdija on the team, I think they win anywhere from 28 to 32 games or something like that. But that's simply not good enough for what the Wizards are trying to be, and it would kind of sack their future because Washington still needs to find its cornerstone player. They didn't believe Deni could be that guy, and that's why they had to move on when they did. Make the argument all you want that Bub Carrington hasn't turned out to be what you need him to be, but he's only 20 years old. Deni is 25, so you're going to need a lot more time to really indicate where things go for this trade. I think you got to wait at least 2 to 3 more years to see where both these organizations are to say that this was truly a mistake for Washington. I think this actually proved that based on the timeline, it was a move they had to make.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Bub and Deni, 5-year age difference. It's unfair to compare the trade right now and compare the two players. And Deni got drafted in 2020, was a big, or 2021, whatever year it was a big fan of him. I thought that he could be not the next Luka Doncic, but be a guy that can facilitate the playmaking. We saw what he did overseas, and Scott Brooks' system just was a spot-up guy. Every Wizards fans and their mom knew that he was being used incorrectly, and we thought that there were glimpses of him. I think it was like against Atlanta and then Milwaukee, but when he was on the when he was his last couple of years with the Wizards, I just, like you mentioned, the timeline wasn't right. If you have Deni Avdija on this team last season, you probably don't get Trey Johnson at the 6th overall pick. That pick is probably lower, and we see the talent coming out of this draft class. We'll talk about DeBanza versus Darryn Peterson. That was absolute cinema. You are essentially not in those sweepstakes either, and Deni, for all his fans, we understand how much you guys support the guy, but there are times where I look at him in the game. It's good, 25, 26 points per game, awesome. And you can make the argument that he deserves to be an all-star. Don't think he should have been there over Kawhi. LeBron James, on the other hand, even though I'm a LeBron Glazer, you can probably see the dispute there. But yeah,
LeBron has to be in the All-Star game.
Yeah, but he has to. It's
Yeah.
LeBron James. Like, come on. But for me, Deni, it's just a lot of foul baiting, man. And maybe I don't watch enough Portland Trailblazers games. And if you want to bring up him versus Kawhi, the record, the Clippers and Portland Trailblazers probably have the same record, a couple games below 500. And I still don't think he's the number one option on a championship team. Probably at most a number two. It just reminds me of the days when Brad was here, where he's probably going to be carrying this team, but you're not going anywhere. You're not making it out the first round if Deni was still on this Wizards squad. And like you mentioned, it does suck looking back as a Wizards fan, seeing him succeed on a different team. But if you look at the main picture, you have to understand that this guy wasn't a Will Dawkins regime draft selection. That's just how it is. Look at Corey Kispert. He's gone. So with these guys, what they're doing running this operation is we have our own guys. Whoever was from the previous regime, we moved on from them. Tommy Shepard, Ernie Grunfeld, obviously they're looking at that and be like, man, we were right all along. They're probably patting themselves on the back. But
Yeah,
if you're
Tommy's
a Wizards
probably
fan,
smiling somewhere.
if you're a Wizards fan, you have to understand that it was the right move. And it's just unfair to compare Bub to Deni right now, considering the fact that it took 5 to 6 years for Deni to break out, Ben.
Yeah. And if 3 years from now, Washington fails to even reach the postseason, like this rebuild never materializes, and Portland continues to be on the up and up, and Deni is the big reason why, and like say they reach a Western Conference Finals, yeah, then we could revisit it, and I'd go back and say maybe this team did make a mistake trading away Avdija. I just think you can't really make that assumption of it right now. It looks bad. It's always going to appear odd on paper that a team traded away an all-star caliber player. I completely understand that, and I feel for the fans. If you're a Wizards fan that always thought he'd be an all-star, you said right away when they traded him, like, this guy will be an all-star one day, give yourself a pat on the back, because I didn't say that initially, but I was wrong about that. He turned out to be an even better player than I expect him to be. However, this front office, when they took over, understood that this was always going to be a strung-out process, rebuilding and retooling this roster to trying to be a contending team. You were going to have to take 3 legitimate years of bottoming out. They knew they had at least 2 stacked draft classes, 2025 and 2026. And they wanted as many bites at the apple as possible, getting a chance to land the top pick in these upcoming drafts so they could really build the roster through the core of players they have right there. And Avdija gets in the way of that if you're the Wizards. And, honestly, it benefits both parties because Avdija probably didn't want to be in a situation where he'd be a guy that the organization's not going to prioritize. It ended up being a move that helped out Portland in a big way because Deni becomes the first non-Damian Lillard All-Star for the Trailblazers in the last decade. So if you're a Trailblazers fan or just a Deni fan, you are ecstatic that that's how it worked out because he's been a really good player. And realistically, I think the Blazers have a good future to build around with Deni. I think they're going to need to get him a lot more talent in order to make that team a true contending team out west. It's a gauntlet out there, man. It's going to continue to be a gauntlet every single year, so you're going to really have to find a lot more talent to be alongside Avdija, but he certainly is a buildable piece for that organization, that franchise. The Wizards just knew this was going to be a bit of a longer process, and they needed as many bites at the apple as possible. And that requires 3 years of bottoming out. And you can say the Wizards are loser franchise, loser organization for doing it, but the Wizards never took this approach once. This was the first time they ever took this type of direction. And as a Wizards fan, you begged for it for so many years. So if you truly begged for this team to rebuild and go through a official process the same way OKC did, the same way Houston did, what San Antonio tried to do and end up getting the best prospect since LeBron, that's what had to happen. You can't really argue this is the approach they had to take, but saying that trading Deni was the worst mistake this franchise has ever made.
Yeah, I think also I'll play devil's advocate here. If you bring up the argument how they kept Kyle Kuzma, should have traded him when his value is at a peak, you get rid of Deni, who essentially Deni right now is a better player than Kyle Kuzma. Okay, whatever. Trading Rui for a bag of chips and Kendrick Nunn, very annoying. But again, it was always about the bigger picture, and that's what me and Ben are trying to emphasize: is that he would in essence, affected the timeline here in the district. And we'll see in a couple of years how far this Wizards squad goes compared to the Portland Trail Blazers. Maybe a little unfair to compare because the Blazers play in the West and it's pretty stacked compared to the Eastern Conference. But I don't think I'm holding any grudges as a Wizards fan when it comes to Deni. Obviously, I wanted him to succeed here. But the only reason why, Ben, I'm a little harsh on him now is because some of his stands think he's a superstar. They compare him to Luka Doncic. Like, come on, what are we doing here, guys?
I had somebody that commented one time that trading Deni was the same as the Luka trade, and then they said it's not the same. Well, but here's what they said, but their explanation didn't make any sense either, because he said it's not the same because they're the same player. I understand that Luka is better, but it's the same because of the situation. I said, hold on a second. The Wizards were a team entering a full rebuild. The Mavericks were a year removed from the NBA Finals. So how in the world is that the same situation? At the end of the day, it is what it is. But there's one guy on this Wizards roster that plays at the same position as Deni Avdija, and he looks like a very similar player to him. And if he develops into an all-star player like I think he can, then people are going to probably forget about this move. At the end of the day, Kyshawn George is that player. I tell you why when we come back. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And this week, Prize Picks has a special max discount for the big game, live in the app right now. Drake May just needs one passing yard for the max discount to win. Add another player to your lineup if your pick hits, you cash in. He only had 86 in the AFC Championship game, so that was honestly a sweat. Price Picks is super simple to use, and it takes no time to get started. The whole format is clean. Pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections. It makes watching games even more fun because every drive, every stat matters. The social feeds feature is awesome. You can share your lineups and even copy lineups from the winners with one click. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. NBA trade deadline is basically here, and we want to give you a free month of our new Everydayer Club to help you get ready for it. If you need a group chat to keep up with the chaos, join ours. The Everydayer Club gets you access to a group chat on Discord just for Wizards fans, plus the national chats where you can hang out with fans from across the league. You'll probably get to hang out in there when Giannis eventually gets traded and see what the reaction is there. AB and I will hang out in there, so if you want to chat with us the way you do on social media already, I would highly recommend using the Discord. It's a great way to stay in touch with us. You can also get ad-free versions of the show, and if you sign up by the trade deadline on February 5th, you can use code DEADLINE to get your first month for free. Tap the link in the show notes to learn more. AB, Kyshawn George has been one of the ascending players for this Wizards organization, one of the buildable pieces we've talked about ad nauseum this year. I legitimately think in 2 to 3 years, Kyshawn George has the potential to be an all-star level player. He plays in a very similar role to Deni Avdija at a younger timeline, fits this Wizards timeline, a guy that they brought in, they traded away Daniel Gafford and got Rashawn Holmes. They got that first-round pick late in the first round in 2024, and he's quietly become one of the biggest steals in Wizards draft history as it stands right now. In terms of what they got late in the first round, it's a massive steal for this organization. He looks like a legitimate piece that could be an all-star player for this team. If he pans out to be that way, which I think he can, then if it fits on their timeline and they become a playoff caliber team in the Eastern Conference with legitimate chances at making runs to the NBA Finals, to the Eastern Conference Finals, then I think a lot of people are going to forget about trading Deni Avdija from that point.
Yeah, and if you look at it, in year 2 of Keyshawn comparing to year Deni, I'm pretty sure Keyshawn is light years ahead. And defensively, I think Keyshawn is going to be a better defender than Deni, and right now is a better defender than Deni. You can give Deni playmaking, but Keyshawn's ability to just do it all on both ends of the floor is truly special. And like you mentioned, that last pick of the Big Three in the 2024 draft class, a draft that was labeled a weak draft, which was insane to me. And last season, I always go back to the fact that I didn't think much of Keyshawn the first couple of weeks of the season. I thought maybe you put him and have him get some run with the Capital City Go-Go, but man, he emerged as the season kept on going on. And then this season, all the hype in the offseason, we bought so much stock into him. 22 years old. There's going to be a possibility where you're going to have multiple All-Stars on this team. When we were growing up as Wizards fans, it was always John and Brad, probably going to be an all-star, but now it's going to be Alex Sarr, Keyshawn, Trae Young, hopefully a top 3 pick in Boozer, DeBanza, Peterson. So many guys are going to be considered to be an all-star. And I mean, Keyshawn's honestly been like, what would you say the biggest weakness is right now? Would you say it's the physical defense and the foul trouble? Because that's something that I definitely think he can work on, and I know it's an effort thing, so it's great to see effort. Do you think it's the I don't know, like I'm trying to like look at it more, obviously, because I'm a big Wizards guy. I love Keyshawn, but what would you say to a non-Wizards fan his biggest weaknesses right now?
Well, obviously early in the season it 100% was defending without fouling. I think he's actually improved pretty significantly. Just trying to look at the game log here. The last time he got to 5 fouls in a game was on January 22nd. Had just 1 yesterday, although he only played 19 minutes, so not too much. He had 4 against the Lakers, just 1 against Milwaukee, 2 against Portland. I think he's improving at defending without fouling, which is a great thing to see. His 3-point shot has cooled off a little bit in the last 10 games or so, just trying to look at some of the logs here. I think he's cooled off a little bit at the 3-point shot over the course of January. He shot 32% for 3. The total for the regular season, he's still shooting at 37.8%, which is very good for a second-year player like him. So I think it's kind of just a blip right now for him, but you like to see him improve in that. I love his work in the mid-range game just because we've seen him play in this on-ball role so much more than he did in year number 1. And it's so similar to me than Deni, because Deni had to increase his usage by a pretty significant amount this year. He is the number 1 option alongside Shaedon Sharpe right now. So with him playing in that role, obviously things change and you develop new aspects of your game. So Avdija's done a good job of that, but I think Keyshawn's also done a really good job using his shoulder to create a little bit of separation in the mid-range. And I think the mid-range shot overall has been pretty good on that pull-up jump shot. The playmaking has been pretty good for the most part. He's had some issues with the turnover, which I think can improve over time for George. He's a guy that's very, very young right now, 21 years old, and he's having to play.
And that's with all young guys, man. Sorry to cut you off, but turnovers, that's fine. At least you're going out there and being aggressive.
He's playing in a role that I don't think a lot of people anticipated in year number 2 for him, so you got to give him the time to develop. Let me throw you a question right here, AB. If the Wizards had just taken George at 14 instead of Bub, do you think people would view this trade differently right now? I think a lot of people are just down on Bub, which I don't think is fair, but I think there's just people that think that.
And I'm going to say again why it's not fair, because Bub is 20 years old. Then he broke out at age 25. That's half a decade of a difference. But, yeah, I think definitely people would be acting different. And the way Keyshawn has been playing, the way he's been panning out, mock drafts probably for years to come in 2020, when you look back at 2024, he's going to be a top 5 pick, man. I mean, there's obviously guys like Buzelis, Stephon Castle. I think Keyshawn clears Resaw Shake. I don't know what his situation is right now in Atlanta. It's just a whole different debacle that will take hours to talk about where his ceiling is. But going back to Keyshawn, I think if it was pick 14, obviously Wizards fans would think of it different. But I remember when people were just so down on Bub, and rightfully so. He was in a slump. But you have to give the kid some time. It happens when you're dealing with a young squad, the youngest squad in the NBA. There's going to be spurts where the guys can't hit a shot if their life depended on it. They're going to have a good amount of turnovers. But Bub really has turned the corner as of recent, and I think his ceiling as a six-man here in D.C. is clear and evident.
Yeah, I mean, I really like what Bub has actually brought to the table the last couple of weeks, and I know there's people that are still plenty down on him, but some of the performances he has had have been super encouraging to me. I think the biggest hole in his game right now, defensively, he's got a lot of work to do, but I'd imagine anybody playing at the guard position while trying to learn so much offensively is going to struggle on defense as a 20-year-old player in his second season. I think there's room to grow for him. But at the end of the day, the NBA is a business, so there'll be an expectation on him to make those improvements. But I'm glad the organization, as of recent, has kind of given him the runway to take the reins as the point guard position. Try to just learn the game, play at a speed that makes sense for him. Continue to let it go from the outside because I mean, he's been one of the better three-point shooters on this team this season. That's a fact. Bub Carrington alongside Trey Johnson, those two have been the best three-point shooters on the team. It's only fitting because those guys would argue nonstop in the offseason, having shooting competitions, saying who's going to be the better shooter, and Trey Johnson saying, I'm going to break your rookie three-point franchise record. And it looks like Trey Johnson will, barring health. will break that record. But Bub has looked really good in year 2 as a three-point shooter, so that's another thing to be encouraged about, AB.
Yeah, I'm excited for all these young guys that we have here, and it was disappointing, obviously, to see how the season's been and how it started. Obviously, we're going to be losing a lot, but the one thing that you can tip your hat to is the development of these young guys and how this coaching staff and front office has so much confidence and stock into how each player has been progressing in year 3 of this rebuild. And man, Ben, Kansas versus BYU, absolute cinema. I know we're about to talk about it, but after watching that game and how Darren Peterson took over and didn't even play in the second half, I'm a big AJ guy. I've always been a big AJ guy, but there's a possibility where after you watch that game and think that Darren Peterson is a lock at 1.
Man, that was some special tape put on by Darren Peterson. When we come back, we tell you exactly about the race for the number 1 pick and how this shapes up for the Washington Wizards. Don't go anywhere. There's nothing like being in an NBA arena, the crowd, the energy, the moment. Getting tickets, though, that part hasn't always been so simple. That's why Game Time has become the go-to app for scoring tickets fast without the hassle. It puts the advantage back where it belongs, with the fans. Love seeing all the prices up front. There's no surprise fees at checkout for you. That's what makes this app so easy to use. Being able to see the view from your seat also before buying, that makes the decision so much easier. Zone deals stand out. You choose the section and Game Time picks the seats and you save. Great last-minute options are available too. NBA tickets show up at solid prices right before tip-off. Everything feels quick, intuitive, and stress-free from start to finish. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. That's code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today, and remember, it's gametime.co, not .com. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. February can be a lot. Flowers, candy, stuffed animals, so much talk about relationships, Valentine's Day. It can honestly feel like everybody has it all together in their love life. But here's the truth, whether you're married, dating, or single, just focusing on yourself, a lot of people are still just figuring it out in life. No matter how you are on your romantic journey, therapy can help you find your way. And it can help you get clear on what you want, what feels heavy, and how to take some pressures off yourself. It's easy to assume everyone has the perfect relationship, but most people are working through something behind the scenes. Therapy can help you recognize patterns that might be weighing relationships down. It can help you communicate better, set healthier boundaries, and stop carrying everything alone. The biggest thing, it reminds you that you're not behind, you're right on time. BetterHelp has licensed therapists in the U.S., and they do the initial marching work for you so you can focus on your goals. And if you want to switch therapists, you can do that at any time. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Darren Peterson against AJ DeBanza was literally cinema on Saturday. AB, clinical tape put on by Peterson, who is the clear favorite to me to be the number 1 overall pick. I know the health stuff, not playing in the second half, is concerning for people, but my goodness, you see the flashes of Kobe Bryant in the guy out there. Just made scoring the basketball look effortless. He was doing everything out there. He was playing the best defense on the floor. It was great in the help side, got it in the passing lanes, great on the ball, was in there grabbing impressive rebounds. He was playmaking. And man, he just made the game look effortless against the guy who's going to be the 2nd overall prospect in this upcoming draft. I know you're a huge AJ guy. Did Saturday change your mind, AB?
I mean, how could it not, Ben? The way he was impacting the game on both sides of the floor, stealing the ball from AJ DeBanza, taking it mid-range shot right over the 6'9" forward. Darren Peterson makes it look so freaking easy. Shades of Anthony Edwards. How good would he look in a Wizards uniform, Ben? I think the injury concern, the minute restriction, is a little something to monitor as we move forward. But I've seen people talk about the fact that Kyrie Irving, when he was number 1 overall pick, didn't play much at Duke and still pan out to be a really good player in the NBA. So with DP, if it's not that much of a concern, then okay. But if it's a consistent problem that we're going to see throughout this season of his college tenure at Kansas going into March Madness, then that's something to monitor. But outside of the injury history, Ben, I mean, he was shooting the ball with ease from the mid-range to the three-point shot, taking it. That poster that he had, oh my! Like I didn't think much of Darren Peterson. I know that he scored 61 points in a high school game. He can do it
against
all.
AJ, right?
I think it was against AJ, and I still think AJ is going to be really, really good. But after watching that, Darren Peterson just took the spotlight, and it was on him. And I don't know, Ben, how much of a concern is the minute restriction?
Like, I get it. Like, hamstring stuff can be lingering, but Darren Peterson has always been a guy, and his family as well. They've always been focused on what was in the best interest of Darren Peterson. And something tells me part of that, like the reason that he'll be on these minutes restrictions and he's not playing a lot for Kansas is because he and his dad view the bigger picture of being the top pick in this draft as more important than what he's doing at Kansas right now. And if people might view that as a red flag. In my eyes, though, you need to get your superstar player. And if you're picking first overall, if you're picking anywhere in the top 5, you need to draft who you truly think is the best player available. That should always be the mindset of an NBA GM. And I think Darren Peterson is the guy who is the best player available in this upcoming draft. Would Boozer increase the win total faster? I think he might. Just because like having a guy alongside Sarr there could be the option. But if you do get Darren Peterson, I don't know, you figure it out from there because this dude's going to instantly become one of your better players. It might take him a little longer to materialize and become a serviceable NBA player that people would expect him to be. But my goodness, just watching that game, you know what it told me actually, AB, is that Darren Peterson is a big game riser. He rose to the occasion. You think about it, you're playing against the top 2 prospect. You're facing the guy that could steal your reins for being the top pick in this draft. You have a raucous home crowd behind
Sam
you.
Presti, Sean Marks, every single GM. I don't know why Sam Presti is there. There's no way the Thunder get him, by the way. Hopefully not.
Well, the Clippers are playing well, so hopefully that's the case. But all the eyes are on you in that situation. If you're Peterson, the national attention on the game, like everybody sat down and watched that game. Everybody I know watched that game. And this dude was even better than advertised. He was dominant in that game, much more so than AJ DeBanza. And that tells me that Darren Peterson's going to be a big game player in the league. He's built for a big moment when the pressure is on. He rose and then some.
So let me ask you this. I'm looking really ahead, Ben. What would that lineup look like with Trae Young, Trey Johnson, and Darren Peterson?
Oh, dude, it's so like this is like the biggest debate
It's puzzling.
right now. But for me, like, I love Trey Johnson. I think he's so good. But if you're the Wizards and you land the first pick, like, get Darren Peterson, figure it out. Figure it out.
Yep.
That's all I can say right now. Figure out how it works. If Trey Johnson is somehow playing the 3, you have all 3 out there, okay, cool. If Trey Johnson's coming off the bench in that situation because Darren Peterson's a superstar player, fine. Figure it out.
I think it just would be amazing. A guy that can just rise up when the lights are shining the brightest. I still think it's 1A, 1B, and obviously after that game, it's 1A Peterson, 1B DeBanza. Cameron Boozer had a good 24 and upsetted my
He's
Hokies.
a dog,
or
man.
not upsetted, but they beat my Hokies in Castle Coliseum. This draft class coming up, I forgot who it was. You remind me of the name, but did you see that guy that said that Cooper Flagg would go 6th overall, or was the 6th best player if he was in this draft class?
That's cap, dude. That's
He just dropped 49 points. How can you say that?
I'm sorry. He goes 1. The only draft class I think in recent years he doesn't go 1 in is 2023 because it's Wemby.
Mm-hmm.
Wemby was the best prospect since LeBron. Cooper Flagg I think he's barely. Is he older or is he younger than Peterson? He's doing
I think
this.
he's a month older. I saw on Twitter.
Okay, but he's going 1 in that draft class just on his size and skill set alone and his age. Cooper Flagg going 6 is a heinous take.
Especially since he
Cooper
just
Flagg
had a performance of his lifetime.
Cooper Flagg's a better prospect than AJ DeBanza. He's a much better prospect than Cameron Boozer. He's a better prospect than Kingston Flemings and Caleb. Like, that's insane. I think he goes 1 in, like, the majority of drafts in this league.
Yeah, I think, and it just goes to show, I mean, obviously it doesn't go to show, but it shows how much talent is in this upcoming draft class for that guy to say that. I still think it was a very horrendous take, but,
Yeah.
man, I've seen guys like Koa Pete, Kingston Fleming. I can't wait till March Madness, Ben. And the fact that hopefully one of these guys of the big 3 is a Wizard, it just brings you so much optimism for how this team is going to operate for years to come. And Giannis Antetokounmpo potentially getting traded out to the West, that just opens up even a more opportunity for you to contend in DC.
I really hope that happens. But, just going back to the main point of this video, it looked like a bad move because you traded away an all-star player, but the Wizards needed an opportunity to be able to draft Darryn Peterson. They needed an opportunity to get Cooper Flagg. They didn't get Cooper Flagg, but you got to take the chance. If they don't get the lottery luck they need, then they'll have to move from there. But that's just the reality.
Well, let me ask you this before we end this, Ben.
Yeah.
Do you think the Wizards or Trailblazers will reach a conference finals in 5 years? Who'll be the first one?
Who'll be the first one?
Yeah.
Well, it's just too hard to say. Portland's the answer now because they have some pieces there, right? They're going to need more. But Washington, we just don't know where we're going to be 5 years from now. It's going to depend on lottery luck and what they do from there. So I can't really give
hypothetically
you land a top three.
Hypothetically, you land a top 3 pick in the lottery.
Then I think Washington.
Yeah, I agree. So
here's the thing, and I'll wrap up the show with this. What the Charlotte Hornets are doing right now, they've been the best basketball team since the new calendar year started. That is a team that is following the path the Wizards are on right now, and everybody gave them a lot of crap because it took them a long time throughout this rebuild process. But when you're a smaller market team or a team that doesn't have an attractive destination for free agency or trade candidates, you have to build your team through the draft the way the Charlotte Hornets did. They've been doing it for quite a few years now, but you have the pieces there. LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller, Con Knippel looks like a star in this league. That's a team that's going to make some noise next year in the Eastern Conference, and they did it the exact same way the Wizards are trying to do it. So if you need anything to keep you from going off the edge of the patience train that Washington is on right here, I think the Hornets are an example that you should actually look at. I know there's a fake beef between the fan base, but you got to give a lot of credit. The Hornets have looked like they're going to turn the corner as a franchise.
And they're also out of the tanking sweepstakes, so keep on winning, Charlotte.
Yeah, go ahead. Keep on going. Make the play in Charlotte. That'd be cool with me. All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today's episode of Locked On Wizards. Tomorrow we'll be back for you, Wizards and Knicks from Capital One Arena, another event where there'll be a lot of opposing fans there.
But a lot of Knicks fans, a lot of orange.
Make sure you're subscribed and followed. We're on the way to 6,767. Make sure you follow Locked On Wizards on all the platforms so you get the podcast every single day. Find us on Twitter at Locked On Wizards. You can find AB on socials as well, the host of the DMV Sports Zone page, or you can check me out on Twitter or Instagram at Strober Sports. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Wizards ad-free, plus the members-only Discord and more. Head to LockedOnWizards.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you the first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel on audio. Make sure you make your second listen NBA game night on Locked On NBA. For my co-host Abdullah Ayyubi, I'm Ben Strober. Talk to you tomorrow, DC family.